Welcome to the Black Tower Podcast, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Thorn,
And I'm Greg.
and today we're going to talk about Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time. All right, so as many of y'all know, last Sunday was Easter. So, Greg, how was your Easter?
It wasn't bad. I was actually able to go to church, not making a religious plug here, but I work a lot, so I don't get to do a lot of things that normal people do on the weekends or a lot of people in the South do on the weekends. So I was able to go to church. That was nice. Spent some time with family. It was great. Just a pretty good day all in all. Not a bad way to spend Easter with family. What about you? What'd you get into?
I did absolutely nothing. Although I did start cross stitching on Sunday.
I saw that on Discord. Can you adult or can you not?
I cannot because I finished. I finished the lettering at least. I still got to do the outside border, but it's hard on your hands. You get tired.
It's
And
not
then
something that's appealing to me. I mean, not because it's like a girl thing, but because just a little tiny needle and thread and the very limited experience I have with that, I'm just like, no, that's
I
not.
have
Not
very small hands, so I think that works in my favor. But also, I have decided that my hobby is collecting skills and hobbies. I don't stick to anything.
You sound like me. I'm a collector of collecting. Like
Yeah.
I will get into a book series, and it doesn't matter if I like the book series. I'll buy the whole thing. I'll just buy a bunch of random books that I probably may never read. I have over 1,000 books in my library, and I think I've read maybe 200 of them. Well, that's probably a little low, but and I just find myself creating more and more reason to need shelves. So I feel you. My hobby is finding new hobbies, and usually they have something to do with reading. So it's really more just me collecting certain things. Like I collected comics for a while, and when I was younger, I collected Hot Wheels, which I
Oh,
still
nice.
have, which are probably actually kind of worth something. I need to call my dad. Anyway, so so I totally feel you on the hobby thing.
Yeah, my most recent ones, like I pick up art and I throw it away like all the time. And then recently I've done crochet. If anybody's seen online, I crocheted a green Aja shawl. It's somewhere around here. Oh, it's behind me. And I hate fringe, by the way.
TV show or what?
No, the fringe on my shawl.
Got it. I'm sorry, that's where my
And
mind went. I was like, what did J.J. Abrams ever do to you? Star Wars fans don't answer that question.
but and then recently it's cross stitching. My little sister told me once because she and I used to share a bedroom. She walked into our room and I was sitting on my bed playing a guitar. And she goes, you're good at a lot of things, but you're probably never going to pick that thing up again. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. That's fair.
Jack of all trades, master of none. That sounds like you.
Yeah, I just get bored and then I want to try something else.
I don't blame you. And I've had to do that with books where I would get through part of a series and get bored with it or feel burnt out on it. Finishing Wheel of Time from beginning to end without stopping to read something else was nothing short of a miracle. 15 books and I didn't stop. Like I had been steadily working on Dresden Files for like 2 years.
Oh, I still haven't finished that.
Right. And
I have a bunch
Stormlight
of them.
Stormlight only had 3 books, so I powered through those. But yeah, there's several series that I've said I've read the first or second book and I've just kind of fallen off, or at least haven't come back to it yet.
I'm so mad because I actually decided to read a whole book that wasn't Wheel of Time, and it was A Darker Shade of Magic.
Oh, I've got that
I
book.
had gotten it because Tor does. So I'm plugging Tor right now. They have an ebook club.
Go follow
So
Tor now.
if you're not in the ebook club, you should be because every month they send an email out to download a free ebook. And that's where I got A Darker Shade of Magic. And I read the whole thing and I was so into it. I get to the end of the book and I realized that it was a series. And I'm
That's why
just
when I
like,
started.
no.
That's why when I started reading Sanderson's Warbreaker, I was like, a standalone. Finally, I don't have to read anything before or after this. I can just sit down and read it, and then it be done. And then I actually hadn't really finished it, but point of fact, you get so used to series, it's almost like a catch-22. It's like you don't want to get into a series, but you kind of do, because when you're done with one book, you're usually like, why is there not more? Like, is there more? Why is there not more? So
I don't think I can read standalones.
we just pretend they're in a series. Technically, if you read Warbreaker or Elantris, technically they're in the Cosmere, so they're not like typical, like traditional standalones. They connect to the other books in some way. So yeah, that was kind of my solace. Is I'll see some of these characters and some of these things show up in these other books at some point. If anyone's familiar with Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere, you know what I'm talking about. But obligatory plug here before we get into what we're going to discuss today is a lot of you may be listening to this at before, well, not before because we won't upload it before, at or after JordanCon. Now, fortunately, Thorn and I couldn't make it this year because,
No.
we's got no monies. So, and actually, to be quite frank, I probably could have afforded it, but my problem is my wife's not in the Wheel of Time, and my buddy that was going to go with me to JordanCon couldn't go because of his job. And so my wife and I were both of the opinion that, why am I going to pay all this money to take her when she's not going to get any enjoyment out of it? It'll probably ruin all incentives she'll have to read the books or watch the series when it premieres, because everything will basically be ruined because nobody's going to be holding back at JordanCon, nor should they. And so we just kind of made the decision that we would miss it this year and hopefully make it next year. So that's kind of where I'm at. But to all of you who are going to JordanCon, we're recording this on a Tuesday night. It'll be uploaded by Friday. So for all of you at JordanCon who have went to JordanCon, have some extra fun for us. We're definitely jealous of all of you, of our friends at the White Tower and Wheel of Time spoilers. Daniel Green's going to be there too. And
remember that whose birthday is it on SpoilerCon? It is either Jen or Jess.
Forgive me, Jen and Jess, because I cannot remember.
Me neither. But anyways, buy them drinks.
We're terrible podcast friends, and don't buy them too many drinks, guys. Well, actually, no, do that, because just do it. Anyway, but we thank all of you guys for listening, and we hope to see all of you at JordanCon next year, provided we're still hosting next year. Hopefully we still will be, but even if we're not, I've fully planned way ahead in advance to be at JordanCon this coming year, 2020. It'll probably be a little more hype next year because we'll be a little bit closer, or a lot closer, to the show debuting. So I will be looking forward to the coming surge of popularity around Wheel of Time. I like getting on the ship just before it gets too crowded. That's kind of where we're at right now. So, but
same here. My husband already promised that we can go. So
excellent. That's very good. So in case you guys didn't, catch our announcement from last episode, or haven't been on Twitter today or in the Discord or anything like that, tonight we are going to actually go through all 15, yes, we're counting New Spring, all 15 Wheel of Time books, and we're going to rank them. But here is the twist. Thorn and I both have separate lists, and we have not discussed what book is at what number. In other words, I don't know her list. She doesn't know mine. I came very close to spooling, one of the books earlier. In fact, there's actually one book both of us know is not toward the top, but that's about as much as we know. We don't know what number 15 is, what number 6 is. We have not compared notes. So you are getting our genuine reactions to each other.
I know you're number one because we
okay. So if you listen, well, yeah, because we just reviewed it, but you know what? It's okay, and I had no bones about it. So everyone already knows my number one. That's fine, but you don't know my 2 through 15. So that's why we're doing this.
Thorn's number one, though.
We don't, but I'm gonna be right. But anyway, so
I'm gonna. Oh, I was just going to say, I'm going to start this off by saying that a lot of my decisions were based on battles.
And this is actually a good time for me to kind of come beside that too, and just kind of let you know how I decided. So battles played a factor, but I looked more at defining moments in the book and how it added to the overall series. and also rereadability. And what I mean by that is when I walk up to my Wheel of Time shelf, which books do my eyes gravitate toward first when I'm thinking about ones I want to reread, moments I want to reread, and then I just kind of started thinking about that way. So for me, it was rereadability and significant moments, which do heavily feature battles. So I don't think our criteria is too far off, but I think our personal tastes are going to have some differences. But that being said, Thorn, I think we need to insert spoiler warning here, don't you think?
Yes, this is a perfect place for spoiler warning.
This episode contains spoilers from the entire Wheel of Time series.
If you have not read the series, you are at risk of being spoiled.
You have been warned.
All right. Thank you, Mike and Kate. So, with that being said and cleared out of the way, I think I was going to start off with my number 15. Thorn will then reveal her number 15. So Thorn, exactly how do you want to do it? Do you want me just to say it and then you say yours and then we just kind of go back and forth? Or do you want me to say it, say why, and then you say yours and then you say why, and then we kind of come together and discuss it? How do you want to present that?
I think we should reveal our number and then discuss it.
Okay, so in other words, I say, okay, so my number 15 is blank, and then you say number 15 is blank, and then we both discuss it.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, this is probably not going to be much of a surprise to anyone. I feel like out of the whole list, I feel like maybe kind of Thorn and I may agree on this one. But number 15 to me, and before I say this, and Thorn agrees with me because we already discussed this, I do not hate a single one of these books. If I hated any of these books, I wouldn't be wasting my time doing a podcast every week about them. I've loved every single Wheel of Time book and everything about it. That being said, that's not to say there's not some weaker books in the series or books that just didn't hit as hard or have as much impact on the overall series as some of the others. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Some of you out there may feel differently. You may think, oh, I hate that book. I didn't like it. It really put a slog on Wheel of Time for me. That's fine. You're free to feel that. But I didn't hate any one of these books. I actually very much enjoyed at least something about every one of these books. And my number 15 is Crossroads of Twilight.
I disagree.
Wow. Off the bat, we can't even get that right. Man. Okay,
my number
so what's
15 is Winter's Heart.
No way.
It's kind of really boring.
But the Choden Call, he cleansed the taint. Come on, man. That's one of the most significant moments in the whole series.
It's very important to the series. It's very important. And yes, like you said earlier, none of these books are bad. I don't think that any of them are bad, but it's not my favorite. Not much happens in this book.
Until the big epic fight around the Choden Call where Rand and Nynaeve, cleanse Saidin of the taint that the Dark One put on, hundreds of years before. But nah, you know what? That wasn't a big deal. You're right. No big deal. And just Rand doing a thing that should have killed him. We'll move on. That's fine. No big deal. I'm not butthurt or nothing. It's okay. It's all right. This is going to be a fun show, guys. You're going to hear Greg and Thorn really fight for the first time. Boy, oh boy. But in all honesty, though, so I put Crossroads of Twilight down at the bottom, not because everybody else does, even though a lot of people do, but because when I thought of moments that really leapt out and punched me in the face, there wasn't a whole lot in Crossroads of Twilight. One of the more significant moments that I remember from that book, and I can tell you significant moments that stayed with me from every book, but Crossroads of Twilight, to me, the most memorable moment for me was Perrin leaving his axe.
That is a great scene.
It was fantastic. It's the cover on my copy of Crossroads of Twilight, and it was a great scene. And like I said, I absolutely loved that scene, and I thought it was a good book. But in overall rankings, it was a lot slower. I think even less happens in that book than Thorn seems to believe in Winter's Heart.
Don't hate. I'm not going to tell you where it's at, but Crossroads of Twilight is not all that low on my list.
That's concerning. It's very concerning to me. But So we put both of these books down at the bottom of the list because apparently we didn't feel they contributed to the whole series in a way. I'm going to be 100% honest with you, Thorn. If Winter's Heart had not had the cleansing of Sidene at the end of the book, I probably would have ranked it as low or swapped places with Crossroads of Twilight, if I'm 100% honest. Because I can see your point, but I don't know, that moment right there, it just elevates it for me.
I've heard people say that they that they skip books and rereads. I cannot do that. I think that every book is important. Even though I put Winter's Heart down at the bottom, it is there's a huge pivotal moment on it. It's very important to the story. Every single book in the series is important.
Oh, I agree. And then, like I said, it's not that I'm actually offended at the fact that you put Winter's Heart at the bottom, even though you're wrong. But it's a personal preference, and you just didn't find it as engaging. And like I said, personally, for everything else that happened, because I'm maybe a popular opinion, maybe an unpopular opinion, and this is going to play into another few books when we talk about them. It definitely plays into Winter's Heart. I thought the Faile captivity arc lasted a little too long.
It really did.
Because it started at the end of Path of Daggers and went all the way to Knife of Dreams. I'm like, Jordan,
I
get you, man, but come.
I get the point of everything that happened and why it was important, but it just kind of dragged.
But see, here's another point I have about Winter's Heart, though, is that the cleansing of Sidene was so monumental that he had to tell us everything that was happening with everyone else around that moment in Crossroads of Twilight.
Yeah.
Like that's what that whole book was, hey, something big happened like way over there. Like I can feel like crazy power coming from that direction. Time to keep doing what I was doing. That's kind of what everybody was doing.
I can't remember why I ranked Crossroads of Twilight so high.
Higher. So high.
It's not. It's definitely not the next book. I'm going to tell you that. I can't remember why. I have this thing open and I'm clicking on the book so I can kind of, what's it called? Refresh. So, because I kind of put this together within like maybe an hour.
Well, I'll be honest, I chewed on it for a few days, and then I sat down last night, and I think that's because she sent me a link in Discord of kind of an overview of the books, just kind of as a refresher from Tor's website. And I just kind of went over the list, and and everything I said in the beginning, which ones am I gravitating to, which ones am I not, what moments are sticking out to me. And when it comes to Crossroads of Twilight, even though Perrin's, growth moment with leaving the axe in the woods, even though that is such a fantastic moment, it's still one of the weaker moments if you're looking at pivotal moments compared to everything else in the series. So I think that's where our 15s are going to be at. Thorn, light in with number 15.
I picked for my number 14 A Crown of Swords.
Oh, missed another one. I picked The Path of Daggers.
Oh wow, we're gonna disagree a lot here because my Path of Daggers is not close to the bottom either.
Well, so the reason I put Path of Daggers at 14 is because there were some good moments in Path of Daggers. I thought the whole Rand using Kalandor to fight the Shan-Chan, but he ended up stalemating because he couldn't control Kalandor and the power coming through Kalandor, that was a fantastic moment. There's a lot of good things about Path of Daggers, and this is going to sound weird, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but there was only one book in the entire series that when I was reading it, I actually slowed my pace, and that was Path of Daggers. Like I actually found myself trying to kind of push through it a little bit, even though it wasn't very long. Now, that being said, that moment and the Bowl of the Winds moment with with Elaine and the others, Avienda and all of them they were running from the Shan-Chan and they blew up the gateway. Like that was pretty fantastic. I'm not gonna lie.
A Crown of Swords is the reason I don't care for it as much. It's right after Do Might As Well. not much happens. He gets rescued by Cadsuane. There's an assault on Ilion, and he chases Samael to Shadar Logoth, and that's whenever he gets the crown of Ilion. And
But see, I really like the fight.
I
though. Like that's what elevated.
can't remember that battle. I love battles. Battles are my favorite thing. I am a green to the core, but I cannot remember the battle between Rand and Samael.
I mean, to be fair, a part of it was kind of downplayed. I think it's due to I am blanking on the thing's name. Mashadar, however you say it. Mashadar. Yeah, I had some letters wrong. But yeah, and I think it's due to that because there was some focus taken off of Rand versus Samael through that.
But all that really happens is that's whenever Perrin and Rand pretend to fight, and Perrin goes after Basima, and then Egwene and Swan. It's basically they're trying to manipulate the tower in what's it called? In Exile. There we go. The tower in Exile. They're trying to force them towards Tarvalin. I think at this point they're already out of Saladar, but they're moving on their way to Tarvalin, so not much is happening there. And it's also the book where Elaine, Nynaeve, Brigitte, and Aviendha are searching for the Bowl of the Winds. Although this is a very important book because this is the book where Nynaeve and Lan get reunited and Nynaeve's block is broken.
Thank you for proving why it shouldn't be number 14.
Well,
you just did it. You just did it right there. Major breakthrough in two different ways for two major characters. Are you kidding me?
Important for the
because that's been such a build-up with Nynaeve, though. It was such a build-up with Nynaeve, though. Like for 7 books, this extremely powerful Aes Sedai can't be extremely powerful as she needs to be because she has to get super pissed before she can channel. And then all of a sudden, when she's desperate, it breaks. And then who rescues her but her future husband? Like when we said spoiler warning, kids, we meant it.
Favorite moments, all my favorite moments with Nynaeve, she's absolutely pissed. Like, even after this, whenever we get to where Nynaeve heals Madness, the whole reason that she healed Madness on the Ashaman that she was with, I can't remember which one she was with, but the whole reason is that she was pissed that she couldn't save anybody in that bubble of evil. So she just grabbed him by the head and she was all like, well, I'm going to heal fucking somebody.
Well, that's fair because anger and irritation and things of that nature, passion even, are a big part of Nynaeve's character. But there was just something. The breakthrough itself. It was she had to let go in order to move forward, and she did, even though it was in a whole kind of like desperation, death type of thing. It still happened, and it was just the scene when it happened. Like I stopped for a second when I got through reading. I was like, wait a second, she just got rid of her block. This girl was not breathing, and she got rid of her block. Like, what just happened? And then, oh, hi, Lan. Oh, wow, hi, Lan. Like, I loved that moment. So that's why it's not.
And I do love this book, or I love all the books. I can't say that I hate a single book, but I feel like it's not as exciting.
Well, agreeing and disagreeing. So moving on to 13, you're going to get a kick out of this, Storm, because number 13 for me is A Crown of Swords.
I picked New Spring.
So I don't fault you for that, really. And the reason being is I've already made my case for Crown of Swords. So basically in my defense of Crown of Swords, its spot is basically just I find a couple of moments in that a little more significant. I loved Dumai's Wells, and I loved seeing how Rand was taking care of business after Dumai's Wells. I know some other stuff happened, and you kind of touched on that a minute ago. There were some weak points to that book. In fact, some people, I'm not sure if I'm there, but some people would say the slump in Wheel of Time didn't start with number 8, which is Path of Daggers, but started with Crown of Swords because there was such a build up at the end of Lord of Chaos, and it just kind of mellowed until
I
Book
really
11.
disagree with people calling it the slog, honestly, because it's all important. And I think my problem is that I love world building. And in what people consider the slog or the slump or whatever, it's all world building. And I like that. It makes the world feel more real. It makes it feel more alive to me. And those are the top 4 things I like. Is I like romance. The cheesier the better. I like world building, especially in a fantasy setting. I like battles, of course. And obviously. I forgot what my 4th thing was. I like to be hurt. There we go. I want a book to make me cry.
I was going to say, excuse me if I can make an inappropriate joke there, but thank you for clarifying what you mean by hurt. So the well, and the thing about calling it the slump is, I think it was more because a lot of people who read these books as they were coming out called it that because they were waiting for something magnificent to happen after Dumas Wells, and they didn't really get it for several books. I think that's why a lot of people call it that. I also have the personal opinion that a few of these books, especially size-wise, probably could have been combined. And maybe redone a little bit. So it's not just a straight, let's combine Crown of Swords with Path of Daggers and Winter's Heart with Crossroads of Twilight and call it good. Not necessarily. It's just, that middle third of the series, it did take a bit of a dip. It took a dip mostly in pace.
I'll give a good point because whenever I started reading the books, they were out until Knife of Dreams. So through the slump, I was able to just keep powering through and just keep going. And
I finished the series in January, so that means I started book 1 and just cranked through. But even I kind of felt it a little bit. No, I didn't. I really didn't. And, that's awesome. I read 15 books in 4 months.
I got halfway through Knife of Dreams, I think. And that's when I was at the library. And the reason that the books were at the library was because the librarian's son was really into them. So she always made sure that she had them updated. And I think he was the one who told me that Robert Jordan had died. And I fucking cried. Because I thought it was the end.
I bet you did.
I thought that was...
when Stephen King dies, I'm going to freaking bawl like a baby.
I thought that was... I thought our story was not going to be completed. I thought that our story was done. Right. And I was like... It broke my heart because I was like, there's so much to happen, though.
And isn't it funny how there's a similar fear for that with the Song of Ice and Fire, but because we're literally in the end game, end game. That's an Avengers pun, guys. Literally in the end game of Game of Thrones, got a lot of endings coming around this month. People kind of don't care or are starting not to care because we're getting closure from the series. But the thing is that for the fans who've been reading those books since I think the first one came out in 96. So there's a similar feeling that I want the books to finish. And, Martin is, I'm not trying to be mean. He's an old fat guy. So, he's probably not too much longer for this world. Knock on wood, pray, whatever whatever you appeal to. But, that's there's a similar fear with that. But at least they'll have closure with the TV series. But there was, I wasn't there for it because I wasn't reading them at the time, but I can understand that, you hear that your favorite author passed away and he's not even done with your books and you're invested in these stories. You're crushed. I get it. I get it.
Absolutely entirely. Heartbreaking. And then whenever they announced, I didn't find out. I found out through my friend again, the librarian's son, because he and I worked together. We didn't work together. I worked at Subway and he worked at a Love's Travel Stop. but we were in the same building. And so he came over and he was all like, "Hey, did you hear about Wheel of Time?" And I was like, "Hear what?" And he was like, "They got a new author. His name's Brandon Sanderson." And I was like, "We're getting our ending?"
See, I think a lot of people did, from what I've been told and what I've read, a lot of people went one of two ways. They went either your way and they said, "Oh man, we're getting an ending," or they went the other way and they said, "No, no one will ever replace Robert Jordan. No one can take his place."
That's
blah 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 blah. And that's true.
What I
but
appreciate.
I read
Sorry,
the
what I
book.
appreciate about Brandon Sanderson is that he did not try to copy Robert Jordan. He
Not at all.
wrote the story as he would write it, but using the notes that Robert Jordan left behind.
And I'm going to be 100% honest with you, and some people are probably going to at me on Twitter. Don't care. Like I said, I read these books straight through, 1 through 14. I read New Spring in between Crossroads of Twilight and Knife of Dreams because that's when it's actually published. So I said, publication order, what the heck? So that's when I read that book. And then, of course, I read the Sanderson books last because, they're the last ones of the series. Well, my buddy was telling me about that and was explaining that he thought Sanderson did a great job. Well, I read the books, and there were some very minor things that if I was looking for it would have stood out to me. But flow-wise and story-wise, I didn't really sense too much difference.
Yeah,
if I'm
you
honest.
can really tell that he tried to be as true to the books as possible, but he also didn't try to mimic the writing style.
Right.
I think that his writing style just fit very well into the Wheel of Time.
I agree.
And so it felt like a continuation. Even though I knew that it was a different person, I felt like Brandon Sanderson loved the books as much as any of us.
Oh, for sure. And it was his basically his eulogy / love letter, his eulogy to Robert Jordan / love letter to Wheel of Time that caught Harriet's attention, and that is what basically put him in the author's chair to finish Wheel of Time. That being said, we went off on a big tangent there. We're rating the books here. So my 13 was Crown of Swords, and your 13 was New Spring. So I'm curious why you put it so far back. Not that I necessarily disagree, but why did you put New Spring so far back?
I do enjoy New Spring a lot, but it's a prequel. It doesn't feel like you don't need it to know the story. Although I do enjoy it. I usually read it after A Memory of Light because it's my what's it called? It's partially comfort, but also it desensitizes me. It's like, okay, we can go back to the beginning. We can go back to before the beginning. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay.
It's your link back around.
And it makes me feel better whenever I read it. I don't know the exact reason why, but when I read New Spring, I just feel better. It's my reset.
Mm-hmm. So what's your number 12?
I picked The Eye of the World.
Wow. Kind of low for Eye of the World, at least for me. I put New Spring in this slot. So past couple of slots here, you've kind of it's like some of these books, it's like I put them one rung higher than you've put them. Like you put New Spring back at 13. I put New Spring at 12. You put Crown of Swords at 14. I put it at 13. So it's kind of interesting.
This is the game we're playing right now.
So pretty much. So I have some similar reasons for New Spring being as low as it is. Number 12. I really enjoyed it as well. I am an absolute sucker for backstory. Absolutely. And getting to see how Moiraine met Lan and everything that happened around, Moiraine basically taking up this cause, as Blues do, to seek out the Dragon Reborn and everything and find the boy that will fulfill the prophecies. And then, of course, running into Lan and everything that, happening with him. It was a lot of good backstory. And like I said, I'm a sucker for backstory, but it wasn't so good and so important that I could really justify ranking it much higher. It's like you said, we don't really need it. But if I'm honest, I would read New Spring before reading the other three, which is Crown of Swords, Path of Daggers, and Crossroads of Twilight. I would like I said, this is almost like if I had a reading order based on how I liked the book and what I thought was important in the book. This would be number 12 on my reading list. This would be the 12th book.
Yeah, I don't hate. I think what I did that caused The Eye of the World to kind of get bumped down is I started my list by writing down my favorite. And then I just kind of started looking at the summaries, and Eye of the World got put on there. And then I was like, oh, well, I like this book better. And so it just kept getting bumped down the list a little bit further.
Sure.
Because it's the beginning of the story. It's
right. Yeah. And to be fair, a lot of people like it for that. But my thing is, Eye of the World was fantastic. If it wasn't fantastic, we wouldn't have kept reading the series. But it was slower. It needed to be, but it was slower. It only had a few high points.
The Eye of the World is heavy world building.
It really is, and you've got to really be into that to rank it too much higher, which, I think both of us kind of are, but slight spoiler for the next few minutes, I don't have it too much terribly higher on the list than where you have it now.
I'm just going to say,
but
Thorne likes battles, and that's how my list goes.
But but no, I can see though why Eye of the World would be in the bottom third or mid third of the series as far as ranking, simply because it's the foundation. But how often do you revisit a house's foundation? You really don't. You just thank God it's there. So that's kind of the way I treat Eye of the World. You were introduced to all these great characters, just fantastic
and I
world.
Think
super great world
it's so
building.
Important.
It's extremely important.
You cannot have a Memory of Light would not have happened without the Eye of the World.
Technically none of it would have happened without Eye of the World. But yes, I get your point.
This big, that whole chapter of the last battle, and then you could not get that chapter with so much intensity and emotion in it that if the little bit slower Eye of the World didn't exist.
Well, right. And that's Eye of the World. I can put it like this. So we talked about these books that people put in the quote unquote slump, and to me, those, like I said, every book's important, and some books just have to be slower. Wheel of Time needed a slower start. Wheel of Time did not need to start with this huge bang, because then you don't have too much higher to climb.
Yes. And
so by him starting not necessarily low, but just solid and slow, taking time, explaining things, slowly introducing things, and then kind of ramping it up a little bit at the end with a little bit of excitement and a little bit in between. There was there were some good moments, and I'm going to pick those apart when I tell you where it is on my list. But basically, it's very important. But I don't think a whole lot of people rank it super high unless they just feel like it deserves one of the top spots simply because
I feel like that's nostalgia talking, which I have a lot of. Okay,
right.
whenever we got Gathering Storm, which was the first Brandon Sanderson, when I read the beginning of the book and the first chapter, we got the I know the whole beginning, but my brain's just not wanting to say it now that. But the Wheel of Time.
See, I want to help you, but I want to help you with the beginning, but at the same time, I want to hold it back because I want to say something about it when I reveal it on my side of the list. But yes, whenever you got into all of that, and
I cried. I cried. I was so happy.
Oh, we're gonna have a great conversation when we get to that book. No, I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. We're gonna have I'm actually looking forward to discussing that with you. So those were that was number 12, right?
Yes, that was number 12.
Okay, so I guess because I have all the odd numbers, my number 11 is Winter's Heart.
I picked The Dragon Reborn.
Interesting. I've got Dragon Reborn a little bit higher, obviously. But I'll double down on Winter's Heart. Cleansing of Saladin was such a monumental moment for me in the series that I couldn't really rank it any lower. However, it didn't quite get into the top 10, but it's still in the middle third. So, but like I said, without that moment, it wouldn't have been that much of a book, if we're going to be 100% honest. Because it was bogged down by the Save Fail arc, which, like I said, could have been like 2 books instead of 4, or 3, or whatever it was. A lot, way more than it needed to be. But yeah, I put Winter's Heart at 11, mostly because I cannot justify putting the Cleansing of Saladin any lower down. If the book itself had been better, as far as everything else in the book goes, the book would be a whole lot higher, because it would be a really great book with a huge momentous moment. It would have been maybe top 5, maybe. But since it wasn't that, and the biggest redeeming thing that I think of is the Chosen Call and the Cleansing of Saladin, then I'm going to put it at 11.
Yeah, I put the Dragon Reborn at 11 because it's kind of a lot of traveling. This is whenever Rand leaves for the Stone of Tear. He starts to head there for the first time. He starts thinking that he's crazy. Moiraine's sent men off to Tar Valon, and they're basically chasing after Rand. Although this is where we get Fael's first show up.
So obviously we're Fael fans. Otherwise, this book would be a lot lower.
And then we've got Nynaeve, Elaine, Egwene, and Huron, and Varen, a lot of people, taking Mat to Tar Valon to be healed. One of my favorite scenes in the entire season is whenever Mat kicks Gawain and Galad's asses in a duel. Like,
that was actually
that's one of my favorite scenes. And then Mat and Tom escape Tar Valon, and it comes ahead in Tyr whenever they break into the stone, but the beginning is pretty slow.
I mean, that's kind of fair, and I think I'll bring a few more things out whenever I'm going to speak about, where I've got the Dragon Reborn at personally, and obviously because I haven't named it yet, I think it deserves to be higher. I won't spoil the rest of the episode by saying how much higher, but it does. I think it needs to be a little higher than number 11, although none of your reasons are necessarily invalid for that. So kind of moving through it a little bit. So now we're finally getting to the top 10. So what's your number 10?
I picked The Great Hunt.
Wow. That's a lot lower than I've got it. I picked Eye of the World.
Oh.
So there again, your books is like you're one ahead of me, with the exception of number 15. It's like you're one ahead of me.
2 ahead of you on this one.
Maybe so, but I'm personally not keeping track. I'm not sitting here writing down which ones we're just talking about them. But I put Eye of the World because I couldn't. Maybe it was nostalgia, but I couldn't justify putting it lower than 10. That was as low as I could justifiably put it for my list. For all the reasons we've mentioned just a few moments ago about Eye of the World, definitely solid book, obviously foundational book, definitely deserving of top 10. Some would say higher. That's fine, you do you. But I personally think it's sitting comfortably at number 10 is a good spot for it. But you put the second book in the series at number 10, and I'm curious to know why.
This is where Rand first comes in contact with the Amarlin Seat. This is where Ba'alzamon, who we later know as Moradin, sending dark friends after the 3 ta'veren.
Yeah, that whole prologue. Yep, I remember that.
This is where Padan Fain starts to really show his true colors. And this is where he also stole the Horn of Valor and the dagger from Mat.
Right.
So
lots of big things happening. That's what I'm hearing.
And so they're going to we get Egwene and Nynaeve heading to Tar Valon to become Aes Sedai, and meeting Elaine and Min there as well. Sorry, I'm reading notes.
Okay, so to appeal to your battle sense, what about Falma?
Yeah.
Like, I figured because of Falma, you would have put the book a little bit higher because that whole ending part of the book with Falma, with Matt calling, being the horn sounder and getting the heroes of the horn to show up, Rand basically justifying his blade master status by, I forget the Shan-Chan guy's name, but fighting that guy and then fighting Balzamon in the freaking sky.
Amazing.
Introduction of the Shan-Chan, like a lot of heavy hitting moments in this book, to be honest, and I got it ranked a lot higher than
I'm not
10.
sure why, honestly. The thing is that I did this in like an hour, and I kind of just like went with whatever I picked. I do like the book a lot.
You hear that, guys? Thorn didn't prepare.
I prepared, but I
prepared.
decided to put it in a position, and I decided to stick with it, and that's what happened. It's because
well, I mean, that's fine, but that's, and I'll get to more reasons why I've got Great Hunt up higher later. But okay, moving through it, got to number 9 now, and I have at number 9 Knife of Dreams.
Everybody's gonna hate me. Crossroads of Twilight.
Really? Ahead of Great Hunt? Ahead of
Okay, so this is where
no, we're friends. We're friends. We're friends. It's okay. It's okay. We're friends. We can stay friends. It's okay. I'm interested to hear why you put Crossroads of Twilight up so high. Excuse me. I gotta go pour myself a whiskey. Hang on. Kidding. I'm drinking water.
So this is where Perrin makes an alliance with the Shan-Chan to fight the Shido, which was very smart of him. I know that a lot of people think that Perrin's a bit slow, but that can be one of his strong points. And that is what kept him from totally botching his rescue of Fail, honestly. Sure. This is also where Matt is... I think this is one of my favorites because, like I said, I like trashy romance. And this is where Matt and Tu-On start their relationship. And I love their relationship because he is constantly going after her, like flirting with her and trying to make her like him. And she's just like, I feel like she's very mischievous underneath her seriousness. She's very like, she teases him a lot. That's what I feel. But she says it with a straight face, so you never know if she's actually teasing or not. So I absolutely love that. This is where the Ashaman this is where Rand finds out about the Ashaman bonding Aes Sedai without permission. And this is also where the Shan-Chan demand the presence of the Dragon Reborn to meet the Daughter of the Nine Moons, who we know is with Matt. And this is also where Pavara and the Red Aja decide that men don't need, now that the taint on Saidin is cleansed, they make the decision that men don't need to be hunted down and gentled, and that they should be bonded as warders, which is a very intelligent move. And then this is also where Egwene leads the rebel Aes Sedai to maintain the siege of Tar Valon, and is also where she gets taken prisoner. And I think that this is a pivotal Egwene moment, because at this book is where Egwene starts to show her true badassery.
So, All well and good. Knife of Dreams is still my number 9. Crossroads of Twilight is still my number 15. Knife of Dreams. Let's recap. So, a lot of good stuff in this book. I would actually, if someone says this book needs to be much higher, I'm not really going to fight you that hard.
I did put it much higher.
I figured you did because you haven't named it yet. There's one thing about reading your list from the bottom to the top is that you kind of start limiting what books are left. It's process of elimination. So, Knife of Dreams, dang good prologue with Galad going after Valda.
Yes, that's such a good
thinking that Valda killed Morghese.
That's exactly
so
the deciding factor.
Hey, let me make my case. You made yours. Let me make my case. So, we get a good introduction. He's really only been kind of hinted at and alluded to. We get a pretty good introduction for Rodo Iturralde, which, in my opinion, was the best of the 5 captains. Don't at me. We can do a whole episode on that later.
Love Iturralde.
Iturralde was the man. He was such the man.
Awesome.
This is where Mat and Tuon officially become married, according to Seanchan ritual. This is also where she being Thorne, says that Egwene's badassery begins in Crossroads of Twilight. It may kind of slowly begin in Crossroads of Twilight, but it forms hardcore in Knife of Dreams. And let's just but hear me out. Hold on. Here's the thing. I have strong arguments for the top 10. Like, if you could take any of my arguments for the top 10 and potentially make it into an argument of why it should be number 1. Because I like the top 10 are the top 10 for a reason. They really are. I don't have a bad thing to say about really any of the books, but there's nowhere near as much weakness in the top 10. And unlike Thorne, I actually chewed over this for a few days, so instead of an hour. So, whatever. Think about that whenever you decide on who you agree or disagree with.
You have to be decisive in a fight.
Lan begins his one-man war.
Yes.
On the Blight. And one of the most epic lines in the whole series when Nynaeve sends the message to call people to him, call the Borderlanders and the Malkiri to him. Like, that's a very epic moment. But see, that's the thing, though. All 10 of these books, I can make a similar argument, so you're just going to have to work with me here.
Tarmon Guyton, does he ride alone? Yes.
No, he doesn't ride alone. He didn't say yes. So then, of course, there's Rand is finally coming face to face with the Seanchan, not in a confrontational way, but trying to make negotiations. A lot of good stuff happens here. And then, of course, this is where the book where Rand loses his left hand in those botched negotiations because it was Cimarog hiding the whole time. That crazy.
So you're just telling me that this is the best book?
No, because it's not
actually.
It's a solid book,
not my number 1.
But it's not the best book.
It's not my number 1. I lied.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay for you to be wrong.
I just get excited.
So a lot of good stuff happening here. The reason why, so this is what I'm up against. Greg, why do you have Knife of Dreams so low? There's so much good stuff in it. Well, number 1, I have some greater things to appeal to in the other books. That's why this one's so much lower. Not because this isn't chock full of stuff, but in my opinion, the moments and the things that happen in all the books before it are, to me, more significant than what. So basically, when it boils down to it, if I had one criteria to pick for how I form this list, it's book significance. Like, what is the most significant book, in this series? And even saying that, when you guys get to my number 1 and see where certain books are, even in my top 5, you're going to be like, how can you do that? But don't worry, I have prepared. So, at me, don't care. Let's go. I'm all about debating, so let's go. Nicely when I'm getting a fight. But yeah, so that's why I put Knife of Dreams at number 9, though, because I still feel like even though it was a fantastic book, Like, it was a breath of fresh air after kind of a slow pace of the middle third. It was a nice breath of fresh air to launch us into the craziness that was the last few books. It was just an all around great book. But I have to put it in a series of 15. I have to put it at number 9.
Yeah, I can definitely.
Your turn.
Okay, yeah, it's my turn. So we're going to book 8, and I chose The Path of Daggers.
So I have decided that we're probably not going to have a single book lined up before this is over.
Probably not.
Because I picked Fires of Heaven.
Okay, yeah, I don't think so at all, because I have that in a way different spot.
Again, obviously.
like it's not even close.
So you put Path of Daggers up at number 8. I put that way lower. So why so high for Path of Daggers?
Okay, so we have got Elaine, Nynaeve, and Aviendha escaping the Shan-Chan invasion, which is where they use the Bowl of the Winds to reverse the heat.
And then there's the Gateway explosion, which I mentioned.
Which is an epic
earlier.
moment.
It was a good moment. It was pretty good.
This is where Perrin moves to Gildon, I am sorry, to try to stop Masema. And he accidentally rescues Queen Morgheza of Andor, who is pretending to be a lady's maid. He gets oaths of fealty from Alejandra, and Faile is kidnapped by the Shido, of course. Egwene is fighting the rebel Aes Sedai because she wants... Egwene is trying her hardest to beat Amyrlin, and they wanted a puppet. But Egwene ain't nobody's puppet. And so this is where this is where they travel to Tar Valon to begin their siege of the White Tower. And this is a lot in the tower happens with the hunt for the Black Aja, because you've got Tovene leading the 50 Aes Sedai to subdue the Black Tower, and they get caught and bonded to the Ashman.
It didn't work. Did not work.
And
at all.
This is, I think, the battle that I chose to focus on, because that's pretty much what I did. Is I hyper focused on certain battles, and that's what happened. So Rand, with his Asha'man and Illianers, attempts to repel the Shan-Chan, and they were at first successful until Rand uses Kalandor and loses control.
I will admit, that moment where Bashir jumps on him and is like, "You're killing everyone, man. You're killing our own people." I was like, "Ooh, Bashir."
It's an intense moment.
It's an intense moment, and like Bashir did that knowing that he could die doing that.
I love Bashir because he is always like. There's that time that I think he throws a dagger at Rand, and he's like, to prove a point. But he's like, he's very much, he is not in awe of the Dragon Reborn. He is like, you're a king just like any other. I am uncle to a queen. He's like, if I have to kick your ass, I'm going to.
And to be fair, I feel like a lot of the great captains were kind of like that, except for maybe I always blank on his name. Ingtar?
Ingtar is a very interesting character, but we don't get much of him. I would love to have more Ingtar point of view.
But it just seemed like the total feel of Shienarans toward the Dragon Reborn was kind of like awe.
Yes.
You know, especially since a Shienoran became the prophet of the dragon. Looking at you, Masema.
Ugh, Masema.
But what was I going to say? But no, I mean, it's a solid book. You know, like I said, all these books are solid. I don't know. Whenever I sit down and I read it, I thought it was good. And there's significant moments in all these books. So none of the moments in these books should be, understated or underplayed or anything like that. I just didn't think it needed to be in the number 8 spot. I put it down the bottom third. Fires of Heaven for me was awesome. It was a kind of for me, it felt more like a follow-up to the Shadow Rising because, I mean, technically it was because it was right after Shadow Rising, but I guess in the actual feel of it, because you know how some of the books in the series, it didn't feel like a true follow-up, like in the sense of you could have put the 2 books together and made one book and it would all made sense.
Solid point.
It was more of, it just felt like an extended epilogue of Shadow Rising, which, to be fair, a lot of stuff happened in Shadow Rising, and a lot of stuff happens in Fires of Heaven. However, Fires of Heaven was the first book in the series to legitimately make me sad, and I don't like being sad. So it got a slightly lower rank
I like
because
being sad.
this is, well, see, that's where we're different. Don't make me sad, even though it was a good reason. It was a good point in the plot. And
I feel like if I don't get sad, then I don't care about the characters enough.
Well, and that's fair, and that's why it's probably a good thing that it wasn't until the 5th book that you can legitimately get sad, because we see the alleged death of Moraine.
Yes.
And that was such a huge moment, especially with I'm sorry, but this moment right here, it both pushed it down the list and kept it medium of the list, midway on the list, just about. But Lanfear blowing up the carriage and like, which one of you is Avienda? And I'm just like, oh,
you're like, oh
God,
my God,
no,
scary
like
bitch.
she is about to go nuts. But we also to me, the whole Ravine taking over Andor thing, I don't know. I feel like more could have been done with that to show more of that. I know they did show a good bit of it in the Fires of Heaven, and of course that was the battle at the end of Fires of Heaven was Rand versus Ravine, which was pretty good. There was Bellfire everywhere.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. There were, I always like Caemlyn. Caemlyn's one of my favorite locations in the series, so I always liked going back to Caemlyn, especially after all this stuff. And of course, this is the first book that we got after the Shadow Rising, where basically Rand shows back up into, back on the other side of the Dragon Wall or Spine of the Dragon. I forget what we call it, Spine of the World. On the other side of the mountains from the Aiel Waste with the Aiel in tow. And oh, by the way, here's a rogue clan of the Aiel. Let's fight them in Kyrian. Which again, all this stuff is great, but I just don't know. It's like it didn't strike me the way the books ahead of it did. Which, like I said, especially the top 10, the importance cannot be underplayed or overstated, because Fires of Heaven was a very crucial book. But again, you could argue that all of them, except maybe Newspring, were super crucial.
Yeah.
So, moving into number 7, since I've been taking the odd numbers, this is where I put The Dragon Reborn.
I picked Towers of Midnight.
We are not going to get along in the top 5. We're just not. Towers of Midnight does not deserve 7, and you know it, and you know it, and you know it.
I disagree.
You know it. You know it. No, Thorn, in your heart, you know it. You didn't listen to your heart. Because all you did was listen. All you did was just reach in there for an hour. That's all you did. You took an hour, and it stuck.
Like I said, I like to cry. I like emotional scenes. And I think that might be.
But Towers of Midnight was pretty emotional. Like, it was okay. So, Dragon Reborn.
It's good. I can't disagree. It's one of my favorite books. Actually, the entire series is my favorite thing in the world. So,
well, clearly we're doing a whole podcast just about these books. If they're not one of our most favorite things in the world, Aaron, you need to find some new hosts. But I put Dragon Reborn at number 7 because as important as it was, I elevated its importance because that's when Rand I know he was kind of declared the Dragon Reborn in the Great Hunt, but he's like super declared with Kalendor and the Stone of Tyr at the end of this book. And that is like I said, I've said in our Shadow Rising review, that was a pivotal moment that led to a lot of things happening. So it was a transitional book. And if you really look at some of these books are just transitional books. And Dragon Reborn was one of them. It gave you this huge, nice big fight in the Stone of Tyr. And then you have the protagonist who we've been wanting to actually come into his own as this Messiah figure do so with this one of the coolest fantasy weapons, ever created. I mean, people can come at me for that, but I mean, Kalendor is pretty fantastic. But I didn't feel like it needed to be in the top 5, but I didn't feel it needed to be less than about 7 or 8. And again, I did the reread test. If I'm holding Dragon Reborn in one hand and Fires of Heaven in the other hand, I'm picking the Dragon Reborn simply because I love that scene at the end where he, does the Arthur thing, pulls Excalibur, if you will, out of the stone and declares himself the Dragon Reborn. And then everyone's like, oh, crud, he just took the Stone of Tyr. Oh, crud, prophecy's being fulfilled. Oh, man, this dude's the real deal. And then, then it leads into fighting at the very beginning of the next book. So it was a very much transitional book. And another reason I put it so much lower, it would actually probably be top 5 but for the fact that even though we had an epic Rand moment toward the end of the book and at the end of the book, we didn't get a whole lot of Rand before that.
Oh, yeah. What's it called? We actually, me, Andrew, and JD talked about the Dragon.
The lack of Rand in a book about
Rand.
Rand.
Let me see. I think I can find the notes and I can tell you the exact percentage that he was in the books. And it's
super low. I remember it being like less than 20%. It was probably much
lower.
lower than that.
I think it was I think it was closer, maybe. Let's see. The Dragon Reborn. There we go.
Because I remember seeing that, the percentage. But needless to say, if there had been more Rand in it, which, to be fair, the book didn't necessarily need more Rand. Especially because the whole scope of the series wow. 2.4%. Memory serves, the only other book in the series where he's mentioned that low, New Spring notwithstanding, that one doesn't quite count, of the main 14, I think it's Crossroads of Twilight.
Yeah, that might be.
Because like I said earlier, Crossroads of Twilight is basically what everyone else is doing while he and Nynaeve are cleansing Saidin. So he and Nynaeve are not in Crossroads of Twilight because a large section of that takes place concurrently with Winter's Heart. So we didn't get a whole lot of Rand in that book either. So that's my number 7, and your number 7 was, remind me of your wrong opinion. Towers of Midnight. I just nope. And you're gonna find out why here in just a few minutes. But I can't do that. I can't do it. So moving on, because we're getting kind of long on time. Let's do number 6. What's your number 6?
The Gathering Storm.
Oh my God, we got one.
What? We actually had a matching one?
We have a matching one.
I didn't think that we were gonna have this.
I didn't either, but we are matching on the Gathering Storm.
Because I know that our top 2 are definitely different.
Sure. Yeah, that they are, and we've known that just from listening to me yap about it in other episodes. But yeah, the Gathering Storm. So, why is it your number 6 then?
Okay.
And then we're probably going to be in the same boat. But why is it your number 6?
So a lot of things happen in this. This is whenever.
Oh, sure.
Let me see. Why did I pick it? I'm going to go with like how I picked it. Okay, this is a book where.
Yes, it is. It's a book.
Yes, it is a book. So,
ladies and gentlemen, Thorne knows what books are. Give her a hand, everyone.
This is the battle that I chose to hyper focus on. It's the Shan-Chan attack on the tower. So you've got Egwene, who has had her ass beat. She's just found out that Varen was a dark friend and that she killed herself to be able to reveal the secrets of the Dark One.
Oh my God, that scene cut me so hard.
Then
I'm just gonna be real. Rip Varen, you'll be missed. MVP.
Yes, I love Varen. This tea is very good. So then the Shan-Chan attack the tower, and everybody's freaking out. Nobody can get their shit together. And then
Egwene's like, "Yo,
hey bitches,
come to me.
I've got a song, y'all. Let's start linking." And she's like, "And we're gonna kick some ass." And
they do.
Egwene acting like a green is my. If she hadn't been straight to Amerlin, she would have been a green, because
absolutely.
Egwene.
Well, she always styled herself after the Green Aja.
Yes, she always called herself a Green Aja, and I think that the pivotal point of Egwene deciding the Green Aja is whenever she took the test for accepted, and she asked one of the Green sisters, "What does it mean to be Green Aja?" And at first, the sister laughed her off and was all like, "Oh, it just means that we really like men," thinking that she was being silly. But Egwene was like, "No, what does it really mean?" And then she heard the words Battle Aja, and Egwene was like, "That's me. That's who I am."
And lo and behold, in Gathering Storm, we see that. And another great thing about that portion of the story is the fact that we end up finding out by the end of the book that not only did Elaida fall, she was taken by the Shan-Chan.
Yes.
And she got a taste of the Aedom, even though that kind of opened up the door for the Shan-Chan learning about gateways to a degree, I think, if I'm remembering right. Still in all, it was very well. It was poetic justice. Is really what it was, because she deposed Swan in the Shadow Rising, and she's done all this stupid crap and made all these bad decisions concerning Rand and the Black Tower and really everything. And then the most pivotal moment comes where they should have known, and Egwene's been trying to tell them, but her pride would not let her listen to this rebel Amerlin, who she's now busted down novice. And so now she's basically reaping what she has sown for that was book 12, so 8 books.
Yeah.
She reaps what she's been sowing for 8 books. However, what endeared me to this book immediately was the prologue. Hands down, this book has the best prologue in the series, and I will not waver from that. When you have the Borderlanders realizing what's going on and literally leaving their homes and their farms and taking their tools and learning how to turn them into weapons, and then going where they're all going and getting ready for the last battle, 3 books ahead of everyone else.
World building. These are people that we know nothing about. They're just people in some outlying village in the middle of nowhere, and we are getting story, and we are learning more about the war or the world and these people that are just outside the main story. And I think that is so important.
And that was my thing, is when I started reading / listening to this book, I actually listened to the prologue. I listened to it on my way home from work.
I think also the book that has Brandon Sanderson wrote an opening to it.
Mm-hmm. That's where he wrote about Jordan and how he got picked.
Yeah.
And everything. Yeah, that's a very good thing to read in the beginning. So that's a good outside of story bonus for everything. But very pivotal book. If not for some of the other things that happen in my top 5, it would have been in the top 5. But it's hanging close at number 6. So that's probably the only book Thorn and I are going to have in the same slot is The Gathering Storm. Now, before we get into our top 5, I'm going to try to do this as quick as we can. We asked Twitter today, to rank their top 5 books in the Wheel of Time series. And we got a few responses, and I kind of want to just throw some of them out here really quickly. And then we're going to kind of compare what Thorn and I come up with to some of you who have tweeted at us and shared your top 5 with us. So good old Marta, if you have been in the Discord, you know Marta. She's very active. She was one of the first to respond, and she ranked the top 5 as thus. She ranked The Shadow Rising, Lord of Chaos, Towers of Midnight, The Great Hunt, and The Fires of Heaven. That was her top 5.
You got these in a different order than I do.
Or you must be looking at that. I'm looking at. Well, who's your first one? You must have your.
My first one is Weekly Wheel News.
Yeah, that is the third one on mine because I've got Marta, then Faldara, then Weekly Wheel News, which I responded to as Rand. Faldara said Lord of Chaos 1, Shadow Rising 2, Great Hunt 3, A Memory of Light 4, Towers of Midnight 5. And you're looking at Weekly Wheel?
Yeah, they've got The Shadows Rising, A Memory of Light, The Great Hunt, Lord of Chaos, and The Eye of the World.
Ooh, wow. First Eye of the World top 5 I've seen. And then who else do we have here? IPA.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, IPA. They put Lord of Chaos, Gathering Storm, Great Hunt, Fires of Heaven, and they actually had a tie for number 5 between Shadow Rising and Towers of Midnight. They said after first and second, next ones are almost neck and neck. So basically saying the only solid ones they had were Lord of Chaos and Gathering Storm, and everything was kind of really running close together. Do you see Mr. Christopher Klink on yours?
Yes. He has got The Shadow Rising, Great Hunt, Towers of Midnight, Memory of Light, and Fires of Heaven.
So there's definitely some reoccurring books for these guys for sure. And then we've got Desmond McDowell, Lord of Chaos, Shadow Rising, Great Hunt, Memory of Light, Eye of the World. So that's the second Eye of the World that's made it into the top 5. Do you see, what about All Mad Designs, Thorn?
They chose The Gathering Storm, The Great Hunt, Lord of Chaos, Winter's Heart, and A Memory of Light.
That's
my top one is not the same as any of these people.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is. I don't know how I think mine's actually going, well, I don't know. Okay, so another one I see is good old Shell Van.
I adore him.
And he says Towers of Midnight number 1, Memory of Light number 2, Eye of the World number 3. A lot of Eye of the Worlds coming out here. Lord of Chaos 4, Winter's Heart 5. People like Winter's Heart, Thorn. Maybe you're just wrong.
It's an opinion.
Well, we both put,
it's an opinion. I'm allowed to be wrong.
Yes, you're allowed to be wrong with your opinion because opinions can be wrong.
So our last person.
But no. Okay.
Oh, our last person here, since we only have one more person who actually responded to us, actually chose. 2. Oh, you got 2? I don't know what are the other.
Okay, so who do you have?
Matt Siders. His number 1 was actually The Eye of the World, and then after that is A Memory of Light, The Shadow Rising, The Great Hunt, and The Fires of Heaven.
I've got one more I see here, and I don't know why you don't see it. Carmo says Towers of Midnight, Gathering Storm, Memory of Light, Lord of Chaos, and New Spring. That's interesting.
Oh, I've got a couple of things that say this tweet is unavailable, so there's that. Yeah,
so if we missed you, we apologize. Definitely tweet us, and we'll try to get you a shout out maybe later on the later episode. But that's what our phones are allowing us to see at this point anyway. So now it's time for Greg and Thorn's top 5. So now it's time for Greg and Thorn's top 5. So number 5, like I said, I'm doing the odd numbers. I put The Great Hunt at number 5.
I picked Knife of Dreams.
Okay, so not a bad number 5 because I do like Knife of Dreams. I put The Great Hunt there because, in my opinion, at least for starters, at least one of the first 3 needed to be in the top 5. And The Great Hunt was where the series really started for me. And what I mean by that is I read Eye of the World, I thought it was great. I thought it was a good read. But my buddy told me, he said, okay, get through Eye of the World. You'll like it. Last third of the book is really, really interesting. It's a lot of world building. It's a little slow, which we all know to be true. And then he said, but it's going to take off in The Great Hunt. And it did. Boy, howdy.
Yeah,
Did
good
it.
point. It does.
It really took off. So I had to put the book that hooked me into the series, that if Eye of the World got me interested, The Great Hunt is what lassoed me and said, get over here. Basically pulled a scorpion on me and said, get over here. So The Great Hunt deserves a spot in the top 5. So it is my number 5. And then you've got Knife of Dreams. I feel like I've probably hit a lot of the high points earlier on Knife of Dreams as to why you have it so high.
We've got Galad and Valda fighting, which was
That was
amazing. And
great
this is
Great
the
moment.
scene that made me fall in love with Galad. A lot of people hate Galad, but I actually adore him. And this is a scene that kind of cemented that because
Right.
he was like, despite Morghese not being his biological mother, he loved her like a mother. That was his mother.
Right.
He did not give a shit. And
Right.
so knowing that Valda had violated his mother, and he believed at the time also murdered his mother, he was out for blood, and I do not blame him. And that is one of the more emotional scenes that we have with Galad. It shows you that he's human.
Yeah, to be fair, he up until that point he was kind of the annoying lawful good character.
Yes.
He stayed lawful good,
Yes.
but we saw, like you said, his humanity in that. He says, no, you've got to be brought to justice, and I have an even bigger vendetta for justice because this is my mother that you betrayed and killed and that you did this to, so I am going to invoke the law of the White Cloaks to duel you, kill you legally, and then take your position. And
his plan was not to take the position. He was going to leave, but technically the rules of the duel were that whoever won took the position of the loser.
Right.
So he ended up kind of pushed into it.
Right, and there's also the fact that Valda had kind of sold out to the Shan-Chan.
Yes, and he hated that.
So yeah, he was not a fan.
Just Galad had a lot against Valda, and it showed, and it never strayed away from Galad's morals and values, and I appreciate that.
Right.
If Galad suddenly became neutral or something, or chaotic good or something, I wouldn't have liked him as much. But he stayed lawful good. He did the right thing as he believed it for sure. And I appreciate somebody who sticks to their values.
Right.
Galad very much.
He really did.
Galad very much practices what he preaches. He's not.
Oh, for sure.
He doesn't tell you, I think lying's wrong, and then turns around and lies to you. Galad will never lie to you because he can't.
Well, Galad was the embodiment of a White Cloak. Well, what a White Cloak was supposed to have been.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, yeah, still overzealous. Yeah, still sticks in the mud. Yeah, still, come on, man. You can give the Aes Sedai a break. Like, still not awesome in that regard, but at least sticking to your guns and your morals, and like you said, practicing what you preach. Not corrupt like Valda and Asanawa and a lot of their ilk, which, I mean, I liked Pedro Nile for what he was. I wouldn't call him corrupt. Opportunist maybe, but not corrupt.
Oh, no, I agree. He doesn't do anything that's technically illegal, and he doesn't treat Morghese badly like Valda did. Like, yes, he kept,
no, he did not.
He kept Morghese under his control, but he never got weird with her.
Right, and Valda definitely did.
He treated her like a queen. He was like, you are a queen, but you are under my wing right now. And I appreciate that because he wasn't gross. Just straight up, he wasn't gross. Valda's pretty.
Right, he was like, we're going to keep you here, and we're going to feed you, and we're going to give you your space, but you're not going to leave. You're here with me.
Yeah.
So there's that. You're a kind of a prisoner, but you're not being treated badly.
Niall walked the road and kept to his morals. Right.
And he did. He really did. I actually liked Pedro Nile for the character that he was. So number 4, Thorn.
I picked Lord of Chaos.
I did not. And you're probably going to hate me for which one I put at number 4.
What'd you put?
A Memory of Light.
I disagree.
Well, duh.
What do you-
Literally, we have disagreed 14 out of 15 times tonight because there's no agreeing from here. There's really
Oh
not.
yeah, you're right. There
Um,
isn't. There
There really isn't. There really isn't. I mean, I can go ahead and tell you right now. If I sat here and thought about it hard enough, I can name your top 3. You could already name my top 2, so it's just one more spot, and you could, you can guess that too. But so I want to make a case for why I put Memory of Light down so low, because obviously, it's the high point of the series. It's the epic conclusion to the series. Fantastic book. I mean, I cannot understate that. So good, so exhausting. It is an exhausting book.
It is. Like I said, I like to be hurt.
Right.
A Memory of Light hurt.
But here's the thing, though. Thorn. Here's the thing. I can deal with internal hurt. This book physically hurt me. My eyes. Because when I started reading The Last Battle, I refused to stop. And it took me the better part of the day. And then when I got through with The Last Battle, I looked at the page count, and it was like 100 pages more. And I was like, screw it. I'm here. Let's do this. I'm finishing this tonight. Kicked my butt. So I have never had a book kick my butt like that one.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not putting it there because it kicked my butt. I'm putting it there because now you're getting into the part of the series or part of the list where for me it's partially battles, and then there's some significant moments that are going to outweigh some of the battles. And of course, if you're going by battles alone, Memory of Light for most people is going to take the cake. But my thing is, Memory of Light was only so big and so great because it had 13 books of buildup. Whereas some of the battles in my top 3 were like drop mic battles in the middle of the book. You kind of knew they were coming, but you had maybe 100 pages of prep instead of 13 books of prep.
Yeah, no, I agree. A Memory of Light would not have been as impactful for me if it wasn't for the other 13 books.
Oh, for sure. But that's by design, and that's the whole point. I would have ranked it a little higher, but there's some battles and some scenes and some things that happen in the top 3 that just basically. So here's the thing. Again, a big part of my list creation was rereadability, and I love the story and the way the story ended and everything wrapped up in Memory of Light. And there are parts of that book that I would sit down and read every day if I wanted to. But the last battle, that chapter,
you can't read.
Thinking about rereading that chapter, because here's the thing: the way I read, I want to sit down and read at least one chapter before I quit. I can't do that with A Memory of Light. When I get to the last battle, I have to split it up, or I have to take a day and read the whole chapter in a day. And it takes up your whole day, which, I mean, again, it's awesome. But I have an opinion that the entire last season of Wheel of Time is going to be nothing but the last battle.
Yeah, I agree.
Like eat your heart out, Game of Thrones. You guys have set the record for now. Give it a few more years. Wheel of Time is going to break it because there are much larger battles across the board in Wheel of Time than in Game of Thrones. Do not at me because I will not argue about that. It's true.
Morden and I were talking to Marta whenever she was going through and she was getting towards the end.
Heard it, guys, that Aes Sedai convorting with Forsaken. She's a dark friend. She's a dark friend, Thorn is. No, that's our buddy by that name, Morden in Discord. Hey, buddy.
So she was going on vacation, and she had gotten to where I think she was on the last 3 books. She managed to finish.
I think I remember seeing those. I think she was taking Towers of Midnight with her.
She didn't. She took none of them with her. She finished The Gathering Storm, and she asked us if she should take them, and we told her no. We were like, these are not beach reading.
I mean, she might have been okay with Towers of Midnight, but when you're done with Towers of Midnight, you want to jump straight into A Memory of Light. That is not a vacation book.
Yeah, we told her no.
That is not a vacation book.
We told her to put it down, have her vacation, have fun, and then jump back in because
that's good advice.
You cannot read them on the beach.
Very good advice.
They're going to tear you up emotionally, and you don't want to be crying on the beach.
No, you don't. So you put Lord of Chaos at number 4.
Yes, I think that my main decision with this is partially the Battle of Doom as well, of course. One of the most epic battles in the entire series.
Especially when it comes to build-up. Like I said, last battle had 13 books. Doom as well has had like 50 pages.
Yeah. And then you also get some important scenes like Matt taking in Oliver for the first time.
Right.
And Matt can't admit it, but he's totally a daddy.
Yeah. At least an uncle.
He's a very good dad. He's a very good dad. I mean, like, yeah, Oliver can never be anything but
bloody dad either.
he could never be. Well, he's going to be. I mean, at the end of A Memory of Light, Tuon tells him that she's pregnant. So,
oh look, you're a lord and a father, Matt. How about that?
you're not just a lord; you're a prince.
Hope you can keep your hat because everything else is changing. No, Lord of Chaos it definitely deserves top 5 for sure, wherever you want to put it. It's number 3 for me. And it's number 3 for me because of Doom as Wells. Because
so we're just jumping right into number 3?
Yeah, let's just move right into it. Why not?
Okay. I actually picked The Fires of Heaven.
Really?
Yeah. I picked it because of the fight against Lord Gerbil. And
Gabriel, oh my God, why did it take me so long to catch that? Jeez, we've had this conversation before. Wow, I laughed so hard.
I said that on purpose for anybody listening. I
Lord
did not
Gerbil,
mispronounce it.
Gerbil, who's Gerbil?
I said it on purpose.
No, she did. It's a running joke, and for some reason, I guess because it's late right now, I just
forgot
lapsed on that.
But yeah, you get Lanfear, and you also get the battle of at Cairhien, where Matt kills Couladin, which I really kind of like the scene. Okay, the whole scene. I'm a gambler and I'm a gambler and a farm boy, and I'm here to take control of your bloody army. That was kind of an epic Matt moment.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely. And then this is pretty much where the Band of the Red Hand got started.
Yes, exactly. Which is so important.
It's a solid book. It's super solid. I guess I put Lord of Chaos so high because Doom as Wells to me was more than just a fight.
Well, you've also got, this is where Brigitte gets ripped out of the World of Dreams.
Right.
And
but if I'm honest though, sometimes I felt like Brigitte was just kind of there. Like there were times where like she wasn't really doing much. I know eventually, and there were times where she was extremely important. But I don't know. I just felt like sometimes Brigitte was just kind of like in the background.
Valid point, but I think that's also partially because she wasn't one of the main characters.
I mean that's fair. But if you, I guess my opinion is if you bring a hero of the Horn into the real world to live again, so to speak, pull him out of the world of dreams, tell him around Riot, and throw him into the real world, you kind of expect him to do a little bit more. And granted, Brigitte had great moments, very great moments. And I loved the character. I loved her, and I'm sorry, but my favorite moment of hers is when right after Elaine and Aviendha and Min have bonded Rand, and then Elaine and Rand go consummate that, if you will. The other two and Brigitte, because she's bonded to Elaine, can all feel what – how should I put this? Feel what Rand and Elaine are doing to one another, and she's screaming, "They got to stop them! You got to make it stop!" I laughed so hard at that moment, and the only solution any of them come up with is Aviendha was like, "Let's get drunk,"
and they were like,
"Let's get drunk, and it won't be so bad." And they're like, "Okay, we'll get drunk.
Let's do this."
But yeah, so I just want to make a quick comment about Doom as Wells, and we'll get to 2 and 1 here. Doom as Wells for me was a lot more than just a battle, even though the battle was sick. Like, oh my God, Asha'man coming out everywhere and just blowing stuff up, and just everyone's showing up, Perrin, and everyone's trying to save Rand or take Rand. But what was going on with Rand, being captive, having been tortured and beat,
Yes.
put back in that box, and then he reached out and actually broke his own shielding around him in the power, and he did that himself. He found the weak spots in the shield and just completely and totally shattered it, and basically came out like a beast.
That's definitely why it's one of my top 5.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. It definitely. If you had not put in a top 5 slot at all, I'd be like, "Yo, Aaron, you got to pick one of us because one of us is fixing to go." I mean, this cannot. We can't. We've got to agree on at least something to do with where we put these books. And top 5, yes, it belongs in the top 5 for sure. But moving on to the last 2, what's your number 2?
Well, we already know that I disagree with you on your top. My number 2 is The Shadow Rising.
Okay.
So we're close.
My number 2 is, and if everyone's listened to the show, it's no spoiler that that's my number 1, and we'll get to that in a second. But my number 2 is Towers of Midnight, and I have one word for why it's so high. Mahalanir.
Oh.
The forging of Mahalanir is one of the best moments in the whole series. Perrin just gets up and goes and starts making a hammer, and then Neil follows him, and he starts weaving into the hammer, and the other Asha'man, he's like, get in on this. And they're like, what are we doing? He's like, I don't know, but I'm going to do this till it feels right. And then you freaking have a power wrought hammer wielded by Perrin Aybara.
I totally agree with you all of a sudden. Let's put that at my number 3 and knock everything down all of a sudden. Because I still...
Ladies and gentlemen, if this were a competition, Greg would have won.
I agree. Well, I'm still not putting it at my number 2 because I still think that...
But you changed, yes. And that counts.
and I do agree that The Shadow Rising is... Epic. And I cannot put it any lower than it is.
Right. So you've got it at number 2. So since I've been doing the odd numbers and everyone already knows it anyway, I've got it at number 1. So Thorn, what puts it at number 2 for you? Because I think I've spent enough time in past episodes describing why I think it's number 1. I'll do a small recap, but why do you put it at 2 instead of 1?
I think that the only reason so obviously if you've I'll just go ahead and say my number 1 is A Memory of Light.
Obviously.
And
the most exhausting book is number 1, but cool. You like pain and heartbreak, so
yeah,
that fits you.
Okay. The only thing that puts A Memory of Light above The Shadow Rising is that A Memory of Light hits all my points. I love battles, of course. We've already discussed this. I love fights. I love battles. And you got the most intense battle of the entire series happening.
Sure.
And then I like romance. This is where Mat and Tuon get together and reunite. There we go. That's a better word. So you get Mat and Tuon reuniting, and you get my brain just died. You get a lot happening. And then
right, and everything's getting tied up.
Yes, everything's starting to get tied up. I just love it's kind of battles too, but fantasy. And what I'm meaning by fantasy and saying it's kind of battles too is that you get a lot of intensity with the different kinds of fighting weaves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
you really do. And
my
last battle. Go ahead.
And my 4th reason is just emotion. I like to feel emotion, and I would not have cried when I heard the Amyrlin seat is dead. I would not have cried so much if it wasn't for the other 14 books.
Don't do this to me.
But
don't remind me that the Amyrlin has fallen. Don't do this to me. I don't like pain.
This is the culmination of everything that Egwene is. She is strong. She is Egwene through and through. She is an Aiel warrior. And
she goes out in a blaze of glory, literally.
She is Egwene al'Vere, the Amyrlin seat, and she is a fucking badass. And I am trying not to cry right now.
Let's don't cry. We're happy. We're happy here. No
But
crying.
I cannot put it any lower because it made me feel so much emotion.
Sure. Now, my thing with Shadow Rising was, as I said when we talked about New Spring, which I put New Spring so low simply because it just, it doesn't make or break the series.
Yes, agreed.
It's an aside, really, but I really liked it for backstory. Shadow Rising is full of so much information. Oh my god! Like, it's one of the longest books in the series. I think it is the longest book in the series, if I remember our review correctly. I think by page count, it's the longest book in the series.
Yes, I believe
Although
so.
I think our statistics said that word count wise, Lord of Chaos was actually longer.
No, that's wrong.
But was it wrong? Was it the other way around?
Lord of Chaos had a lot more pages, but the Shadow Rising had the most words.
Right. So there was right. So that's I just had it backwards. So my thing about Shadow Rising though is it set up so much of the story. Like, it was almost like a second foundation, or if you will, it was the framing for the rest of the series.
Valid.
Because if the first 3 books, especially Eye of the World, laid such a solid foundation, then what was built on that foundation was framed by everything that happened in the Shadow Rising. You have the Amarlin seat, Swan Sanche getting deposed, and that sets the pace for literally 8 books, which also sets the occasion for the rise of Egwene Alvear. You have Rand being confirmed as a Dragon Reborn by the as the Aiel call them, the Wetlanders, but then he goes and gets confirmed by the Aiel, which was a huge deal. You've got every character basically splitting off and coming into their own. And as far as battles go, no battle to me has more heart and soul than the Battle of the Two Rivers. I mean, and it's merely because, I know you'll probably disagree with that to some extent. That's not to say the last battle was not
I disagree slightly it's the most, I still believe that the last battle is the most intense battle, but
right.
The Shadow Rising is my number 2 for a reason.
Right. And I guess what makes the last battle so impactful to me, but it got a little bit lower rating, is because every battle before it played into it.
Yes.
So literally the last battle was nothing without the rest of the books. If it stood by itself like these other battles kind of did, or to a degree, then it wouldn't have been as impactful. But that's by design. That's what you want. It's the end of the story. It is this apocalyptic event, and that's what you want. But the Battle of Two Rivers was the first real, substantial, battle in the books. As far as I know, you had Falma, which was really just from a battle standpoint, Falma was just White Cloaks versus Shan-Chan with Rand and his Ta'Veren friends mixed in the middle. And that played into Rand's formation as the Dragon Reborn and a few other things as well. But it wasn't like this enormous battle on the scale of Dumai's Wells or even the Battle of Two Rivers, because the Battle of Two Rivers, for how slow Eye of the World is, you do get into the Two Rivers culture.
Yes.
And you get back into it in Shadow Rising, and it's more focused on Perrin instead of split between the 3, or really focused on Rand if you want to be technical, but it's more focused on Perrin. And then the White Cloaks are back, but then you got the Trollocs, and there's a lot going on in the Two Rivers. And look, man, the Two Rivers is one of the best places and the best groups of people in the series, simply because they're the ones they're the simple folk. They want nothing to do with any of that. But then you see for yourself that when their livelihood is threatened, they don't act like hobbits and run into a hole. They stand up and fight. They just needed somebody to get them together, and that person was Perrin Aybara. And you see this occur, but here's my thing. When I was reading the last battle, I kept thinking about the Battle of the Two Rivers, because those same people that stood up for their homeland, their hometown and their neck of the woods, so to speak, are now standing up for their world. But they would never, ever have went to the last battle had not been for the Battle of Two Rivers. And the majority of, because the whole series, like I said, it pivoted on Shadow Rising. So much of books 4 through 14 depend on what happened in the Shadow Rising. So that's why I have to put it at number 1. But number 2 is a very worthy spot for it as well.
Yeah,
I'm not displeased that you put it there.
I don't disagree with any of those points, honestly. Because
It's just for you. It's like you said, Memory of Light just checks all your boxes.
it just checks all my boxes, and it's just like just that little tiny bit above it.
One other thing I do want to mention that we haven't mentioned, and then we'll be wrapping up here, is both are, well, not both are ones and twos because I have Towers of Midnight, but there's a common thread between a couple of our top three, and that is the Elfin and the Eilfin.
Oh, valid point.
Yeah, because what started with Matt in Shadow Rising ended somewhat in Towers of Midnight. So that was another reason why I had to have Towers of Midnight close by.
I don't think that Towers of Midnight was that high for me. I already closed out my thing, but
You bumped it to 3.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
And I said Mahalaneer, and you're like, oh my god, I forgot about Mahalaneer. It's number 3. Like everything else goes down, it's number 3. So that's why I said our top 3, because you had amended it on air. Everyone heard her.
Okay.
You know, so well, you did. You said I'm putting that at number 3, and everything else is going down a notch. And I was just like, cool. All right.
Oh, that means that we have nothing that's in common then. Oh wait, no, we have a bunch more in common if we do that.
Well, to be fair, you know, our top 5, we got a similar top 5. It's just rearranged. I think the only books we have different are I've got Great Hunt the top 5, and you've got Fires of Heaven the top 5. But I think the other 4, which were Memory of Light, Towers of Midnight, Shadow Rising, and Lord of Chaos, we have all 4 of those in our top 5. So spacing wise, yeah, we're not that far off. We disagreed on like a lot of stuff below Rule 6, really, because we had number 6 in common. Well, I guess we don't now, because now I guess it moved down to 7 because you moved Towers of Midnight up to 3. That's confusing. Anyway, so
I don't know.
But yeah, it's a thing, guys. But yeah, so listeners out there, tell us what you think. You know, was our list? Yeah, are we out of our minds for putting these books where we put them, or do you agree? According to what we've seen on Twitter, a lot of you probably agree with most of our top 5.
This time you do get to add us. You can always at Tower Podcast.
Or you can at me at Randall Thor. I can talk to you at a character, but it's not at Randall Thor. It's at Dragon Reborn 2. And of course, Thorn is at Thorn Fireheart. But definitely come see us over at Tower Podcast and our Discord. If you've never been on Discord is awesome. Self-contained community. We have different channels for different conversations. Of course, the main topic is Wheel of Time, but we've got some spaces if you want to talk about some other things. So we definitely want to see you guys in the Discord. We will post that link, and we'll be making sure to regularly post that, tweet that rather, on Twitter. But definitely come see us at Tower Podcast. If you are listening and you're at JordanCon or you're back from JordanCon, we hope you're having or have had a wonderful time. Drink some Usquai for us, and then maybe not too much. And this episode has actually went a lot longer than I anticipated, Thorn. So we definitely Thorn's now editing, so she's got her work cut out for her. But
this one should be actually easy because I think that I'm not really going to cut anything out.
Because she didn't flub the spoiler warning because we
didn't have one. I didn't have to do it.
Yeah, we had Michael Kramer and Kate Reading, definitely. But yeah, but that's it for us. So next episode, we're going back to a book review. We'll be getting into one of Thorn's top 5, which is The Fires of Heaven, because we've left Greg's number 1, Shadow Rising. So we'll be talking about another book that's close to at least one of our hearts, which I'm fair. All 15 of these books are kind of crammed together in my heart, so it's really not that big of a deal. But anyway, Thorn, you have any parting thoughts?
Remember of course, we've talked about at Tower Podcast in the Discord. Don't forget, you can also email us at blacktowerpod@gmail.com. And also, I will post the link to our Patreon. So
yes, please hit up the Patreon because Zencastr does not pay for itself. So please hit up the Patreon. We have got some goodies on there, and Thorn and I are constantly brainstorming on other things to provide to our patrons. Thank you for those who have been patrons for your generosity. Please continue to be generous, and we will continue to make content for you guys specifically. But definitely we want all our listeners to enjoy everything we have to offer. So please hit the Patreon if you want to support what we're doing here. And if I think that's everything we've got. So for the Black Tower, I'm Greg.
And I'm Thorn.
And we'll catch you guys next time.
Bye.